Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. There's an upcoming event in July. It's the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies. It's going to be an online event, too. I guess you could check it out online when they have this as a conference. It's an anomalous aerospace phenomena conference. And one of the agenda items that was pointed out to me today by one of my followers on YouTube, Saywan P., talks about on Saturday, July 29th, one of the programs, one of the presentations is going to be from speakers Richard Griffiths and Alejandro Rojas, members of this SCU group, which I talked about before in a previous podcast. And one of the things they're going to be talking about is this: a very large UAP crosses the North Pacific, observed by 5 pilots with 2 photos and a video. And here we go. This is what this is going to be about. Now, there's pictures, these photos and videos not available yet, but I'm assuming that we're going to see them at this conference, which I look forward to. It says here, we describe a non-military observation of a UAP by multiple observers with 2 cell phone photos and a video. The observations are inexplicable on the basis of current human technology because the craft was at least a mile long, glowing against the dark sky, and was moving at about 20,000 miles per hour with no aerodynamic supporting surfaces. There are no corroborating radar or other observations. Upper limits are placed on the gravitational lensing of background field stars in the vicinity of the craft. Future observations of this kind may possibly be used to unambiguously identify extraterrestrial craft and to constrain their propulsion mechanism. Prior to the observations of this large craft, 4 or 5 orbs or lobes were seen to maneuver over angles of 5 to 10 degrees in seconds and then go into formation before assembling into the large craft or else going inside of it. So, this is very interesting. Now, this was observed by 5 pilots. Now, we don't know how many planes were involved. We don't know if they were commercial planes, private planes. We have no idea. It's not stated here. I guess we'll learn all about that at this conference. But I mean, we're talking about, again, an object that's over a mile long, flying through the air at 20,000 miles per hour. Obviously, humankind has not developed any kind of technology like this, and so this is extraterrestrial. I mean, you have 5 pilots that saw this thing, and they have video evidence, and they have photos. So and this group here is going to talk about it, and they're very interested in unlocking the mystery of the behind the UFOs. There are some scientists in the world, obviously, like the people that are members of this SCU organization, that are interested in it. By the way, SCU had recently requested to get some of the data that Arrow's looking at, because they want to look at it too, privately. They want to be able to try to study the data that the United States military has been amassing over the years, and they want to look at some of those things too that Arrow's looking at right now, and then, of course, provide their observations to the government after they've concluded their investigations, as well as to the rest of the world. These people are interested in talking about this in a public manner. These are scientists that obviously don't believe in covering this whole UFO business up. But anyway, here's their mission statement. I think I read this before, because when I did talk about them, I brought this up before. They are studying this, and they were requesting that data from the government. Anyway, it says, the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies is a think tank of scientists, researchers, and professionals stretching across organizations, governments, and industries to scientifically and publicly explore anomalous phenomena known around the world as UAP, UFOs, USOs, and OVNIs. Their work is we conduct, promote, and encourage the rigorous scientific examination of unidentified aerospace phenomena, commonly known as unidentified flying objects. We utilize scientific principles, methodologies, and practices in the study of unidentified aerial phenomena observed and reported around the globe. We provide scientific case analysis to support witness cases, other scientific organizations, and government entities who are looking for the certitude of facts for this phenomenon. Of course, I will leave the the link for their website, as well as a link to the events that are going to happen over the last weekend in July, and including the one that that we're talking about here, about this object that's over a mile long that travels at over 20,000 miles per hour over the North Pacific Ocean. That was seen by 5 pilots, by the way. So despite the cries of debunkers, I mean, the evidence still continues to pile up. There's something here on this planet. There's an extraterrestrial presence here. There was some other interesting thing that I just came across today. This was something that was posted on Twitter by UFOB. That's a YouTube channel that I talk about a lot. They have a lot of good videos on there, documentaries, things like that, on older documentaries on UFOs, all kinds of really good stuff. If you haven't checked out UFOB, you really should. It's a great YouTube channel. But they posted something on Twitter. There was I wasn't aware of this. There was some thread. Apparently, it's from 4chan. It doesn't really state where it's from, but there's this person who claims to have intimate knowledge of what the United States currently knows about UFOs minus the last 2 years. Now, we don't know who this person is. We don't know if this person is just some random, a liar sitting in a basement just writing this stuff up, or if it's an actual person who's decided to go online and talk about what he or she knows about what the United States knows about UFOs. But anyway, this is what this person claims. It says UFOs are primarily unmanned drones. UFOs are built to spec each time they are deployed. UFOs are created by a mobile construction facility that hides in the ocean. Construction facility destroys anything that comes close to it and will disappear for days when approached aggressively. The United States believes the facility has been active on Earth for at least 100 years or much longer. And then the person asked, told people, hey, if you have any questions, you could ask. And anyway, there is an archived page of this person talking online. Again, I think it's 4chan. It looks this thread looks like it's from 4chan, and there were people who asked questions. But regardless of whether the person is really has insight to what the United States really knows about extraterrestrials or not. I mean, these are things that a lot of us think about anyway, right? I mean, I think that one of the hiding places for their motherships is under the ocean. I mean, obviously, in what the SCU is going to be talking about come July during this presentation is the fact that there were 5 pilots who saw an object that was over at least a mile long and that was traveling at 20,000 miles per hour. And that there were orbs that they saw before they saw this bigger object. They saw these orbs, and then those orbs later connected or went inside the larger object. This is what people see. This is what's really happening here. This is what's being the truth behind this is being kept from you. People within the government that know more about this are keeping these secrets from you. Now, again, whether this other guy, this anonymous person who claims to have inside UFO knowledge is again, well, like I said before, if he's real or not, right? It doesn't really matter. We know that there's something going on. We know that there's large motherships, and we could go back and we could talk about some other incidents, like in the Stephenville, Texas, back in 2007. There was a gigantic object seen by a lot of different witnesses. But even more so was the Phoenix Lights incident from 1997. There was an object that some people described as being the size of multiple football fields that was floating through the sky. And here's an article with regard to that. I want to talk about that a little bit. It says here, dramatic description. One of the dramatic descriptions of the mothership was made by a group of real estate agents who worked with real estate in the northern part of the city of Phoenix. In addition, they were able to see the giant disc up close. They estimated that the ship was flying at a low altitude near Phoenix. It was about 2 kilometers wide. They saw dozens of bright lights on the front edges, as well as a row of windows with silhouettes of people. It also seems highly likely that for some reason the giant ship was turning off its lights, as the observers could only see the windows with what appeared to be people shaded in the glow inside. Another family also received a brightly lit view of an unknown UFO and described its color as blue-black, like the color of a shotgun barrel. Among the most reliable witnesses on the first night of the sightings, because this happened over the course of a couple of different nights back in March of 1997, were two pilots, one of whom later resigned from the airline, although they saw the object at different times and in different places. Both pilots described UFOs of enormous size, up to the 1.5 kilometers long. The plane's captain could also see the city lights of Phoenix reflecting off the bottom of the massive UFO while it blocked out the stars. One of the pilots also filmed a UFO, but it was confiscated during his meeting with the Men in Black. See, again, the government always has to step in and cover these things up. They don't like people to know the reality that not only are there extraterrestrials here, not only are they flying around in flying saucers and other triangular objects, and who knows, all different kinds of shapes of objects, and even though they're and also that they're also obviously using some sort of orbs as remote probes of some sort. They have those flying around, but they also have these gigantic motherships, right? But the government doesn't want us to know that. It's just too much for us, for the human race to deal with, apparently. So they have to send in the Men in Black and confiscate video evidence, picture evidence every now and then, because they don't want this to get out to the public. But there are, I mean, when you really think about it, how did they get here? They didn't all come flying here in little tiny flying saucers, right? 30-foot diameter objects. There must have been some sort of a bigger object, right, that brought them here, right? And hence the motherships that people have seen on different occasions. And again, and you have to remember the Phoenix Lights incident. Not only these people were witnesses, but actually the governor, not at first, but later on, he came clean and said he saw the object with his own eyes, and he said it was gigantic. It was the biggest thing he ever saw. That's what Fife Symington had said about the object years after the effect. He didn't want to panic the people at first. That's why he didn't say anything. But then years later, he told the truth and said this thing was the biggest thing I ever saw in my life. Continuing here with this article, it says here, in a completely separate case, a group of witnesses reported a huge disc-shaped UFO, which was bigger than the Sun Devil Stadium at Arizona State University. The object hovered above the treetops at the west end of the Sky Harbor Airport runway between 2 and 3 o'clock, about 2 weeks before March 13th, 1997. So in addition to this main object that most people saw during the Phoenix Lights incident was this triangular shaped object, right? It was so big, it was as big as multiple football fields, as people stated at the time. There was over 1,000 witnesses that saw this thing. In addition, there was other craft that were sighted in the area too. You have to wonder, like there are some UFO researchers out there, like Preston Dennett, who believes that these aliens are. They do these shows sometimes every now and then. They're just trying to get the world used to the idea that, hey, you're not the only things in the universe. You're not the only intelligent life out there. And guess what? Not only are you not the only intelligent life out there, but there are other things that came from someplace else that are here right now. Right? That's what I think the message might be here. And then I'm going to go into the military involvement in the Phoenix Lights incident. It was almost inevitable that the United States Air Force would be involved in an event of this magnitude, and the mystery of the Phoenix Lights was no exception. When a truck driver was driving on the I-17 freeway from Camp Verde for 2 whole hours, he saw 2 amber UFOs moving ahead of him to the south. His target was a material manufacturing plant near the United States Air Force Base, Luke. Upon arriving there, he saw the 2 UFOs were hovering nearby. While his truck was being loaded, the driver climbed onto a pile of materials to get a better look at the 2 UFOs. He made out 2 identical amber balls with a white glow. A band of red lights pulsed across the ships, and they hovered over the runway at Luke Air Force Base. Suddenly, 2 F-16 planes with afterburners took off from the base. A third plane soon followed, and the 3 of them headed straight for the hovering UFOs. When the first 2 jets approached the UFO, the unknown object soared up and disappeared in an instant. 2 jet planes flew just in the place where the UFOs used to be. See, again, you see, like what happens. We're completely helpless against these beings. I mean, the technology that they possess, the objects that they operate, are just, we don't have anything that comes close to it. We just don't. So the Phoenix Lights is just one of those incidents where, again, it was what the bottom line here is, it was a gigantic UFO. Every now and then there's a mothership that's sighted, and And I guess it actually makes sense, the fact that there were like, when a mothership shows up like this over a populated area, of course there's going to be over 1,000 witnesses. Now, for decades now, we've had debunkers who have made try to say that it's only flare. The military's, trying to say it's only flares. It's don't worry about it. It was nothing. It's all hoax or this and that. You can't pawn this off as a hoax. There were too many witnesses that saw this gigantic object, including the governor, Fife Symington. So whenever you hear any debunker or anybody from the government, anybody from the Pentagon tell you that it was, it's just jets flying in formation and flares and stuff like that. There's no such thing as extraterrestrials. We have no proof of that. Anytime you hear anybody say that kind of stuff, they're lying to you, because you had there's way more witnesses to the reality that what was hovering over Phoenix back in 1997 was this gigantic. In some cases, it was a gigantic triangular-shaped craft. That's what they saw. Some people said it. They described it as a gigantic boomerang. So that's the reality of the situation. There are motherships here. Where like after that Phoenix Lights incident, where did that mothership go? Where's it hiding out at? Right? Either it went into space, but if it stayed here, it's under the ocean somewhere, most likely. I would believe. So, I mean, even though that the comments that I was talking about earlier from this person who alleges to be a former insider, somebody who had direct knowledge of what the United States knows about UFOs, whether that person's telling the truth or not, right? It doesn't matter. The ideas that are presented are things that we all think about. Like we could speculate on it and think that that's most likely the case, because I mean, where else are they hiding? They're hiding in the ocean. It makes sense. And if they are manufacturing these things, they would have to manufacture them inside some sort of facility, right? I mean, you just can't. Yeah, I mean, they wouldn't be able to do it outdoors somewhere, right? So it all makes sense. So that's a possibility that actually these craft are being manufactured inside these gigantic facilities that are hiding underwater, under the ocean. That's where they come from, and that's where they're hiding out. What the ultimate plan is, we don't know, but there have been some ideas about what the end game here is with all of this. And anyway, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about where this might all be heading. Okay, we are back. One of the most respected UFO investigators of all time is the late Major Donald Kehoe, who was retired from the Marine Corps. This guy, of course, as a lot of us know, who have studied this stuff, studied UFOs. This is a person who had a lot of contacts within the Pentagon, and during the 1950s, he had written several books on this topic. And these books are really good. I mean, I have some of his books here. I have right now. I'm going to read a little bit from Flying Saucers from Outer Space. And anyway, Kehoe had contacts in the Pentagon, and he was working with a lot of different people. So he was getting because the Air Force back then in the 1950s, what they were telling Kehoe, they had no idea what these objects were. They were trying to investigate them. They wanted to come up with answers for the public. And then at some point during the 1950s, Kehoe noticed that they were starting to pretend that it wasn't real, that they were basically trying to cover this all up, that they wanted to pretend that it wasn't real, that there was actually an effort to stigmatize it, and he saw that firsthand. But anyway, he talked about there was on page 232, starting on that page, there was where he mentions he received this report that was put together by this colonel from intelligence with the Pentagon, W.C. Odell. Now, I've talked about this before, but this was what Odell had put together was a speculation on what was going on with these beings, because I guess as far as Odell was concerned, he had come to the conclusion that obviously these things aren't human made. I mean, we don't have craft like this. So he had come up with this report, that a paper speculating that the reason they're here is that they're trying to colonize. They're here to colonize the planet. That's what's going on. And he came up with the paper was called "Planet Earth: Host to Extraterrestrial Life." Now, I did talk about this in a previous podcast, but it's always nice to revisit this. I always found this extremely interesting. But anyway, according to this book, according to the in Kehoe's words, what Odell was stating is, if Odell were right, unknown beings from a dying planet were considering the Earth as a possible haven, a new home in which to perpetrate their race. Possibly, as Odell said, the long survey would prove our world was not suitable. Otherwise, planet Earth might become, willingly or not, a host to extraterrestrial life. Of course, it could be done gradually over a period of years. Even then, the problems seemed enormous, though they might not be barriers to a race which had long ago mastered space travel. How would man in some far distant age go about migrating to another planet? It would depend first on the fate they faced on Earth. There were two theories as to how the Earth would die. According to the first, it would slowly cool, then become frigidly cold like Jupiter and Pluto. The opposite theory held that the Earth will get unbearably hot and finally burn up. Well, let's just stop there for a minute. Right now, it looks like we're going to get the second option there. It's going to get unbearably hot and finally burn up. That's what it looks like right now. Anyway, one scientist holding this belief is Dr. George Gamow, author of 1, 2, 3, Infinity, and professor of theoretical physics at George Washington University. In Gamow's opinion, the sun is producing more energy and constantly expanding. At the last, our globe will be destroyed in a tremendous explosion. Well, then it goes on to talking about how we might be destroyed. But I guess the bottom line is the book talks about how eventually the Earth might become uninhabitable to us and we might have to go somewhere else. But what if right now what's going on here is the Earth is looked at by extraterrestrial beings as someplace where they could go because maybe their planet, wherever they came from, is on its way out. So that's possibly what's going on here. And maybe, for all we know, maybe this, they've been working all these decades, like since 1947 when they showed up in force, that they've been working all these decades basically to prepare the planet for them. I don't know. I mean, how everything else plays into it, alien abductions and all that kind of thing, I don't know. But I guess, okay, at some point there's going to be a takeover, I guess. If like some people like Dr. David M. Jacobs, who's studied alien abductions, says that what's going on is they're basically creating this hybrid race of beings, and they're going to be integral when the time comes for this massive takeover. They're going to play a part in this. When the time comes for the aliens to take over the planet, they're going to play a part in this. These hybrids that are living among us. It's fantastic to think about, but it could be. I mean, let's consider the situation here. I mean, I want to point out, okay, you look at how everything has gone down. 1945, World War II is coming to an end. We come up with the United States develops the atomic bomb. We drop 2 of them on Japan. The war is ended. Within 2 years, it seems like the flying saucer activity picks up, especially in 1947. There's always been stuff seen here and there over the decades, but in 1947, of course, starting with Kenneth Arnold's sighting of 9 objects over Mount Rainier in the state of Washington, things seemed like they never let up after that. Like it seemed like there was a show of force, actually. For all we know, maybe the atomic bomb blast had nothing to do with it. It just was the timing. The timing was just coincidental. Maybe these beings showed up in force back at that point, and they're looking over our planet, right? They're checking it out like tenants looking at their new abode. Right, maybe that's what the whole thing has been about, right? So then they're trying to figure out, okay, how are we gonna take over this planet? How I mean, I guess some people will say, well, they could just blow us all up, but then they would be destroying the planet. They don't want to do things that way. Maybe they want to try to get rid of us in more of a humane way. It would be uncouth actually to wipe us all out and in the meanwhile actually destroy the whole planet. If they wanted to use some sort of advanced weaponry that just disintegrates everything, well, then there's nothing really here left for them, right? So then, and on top of it, maybe they think they look at us and they think, what, these beings ain't worthy anyway. Look at how violent they are, right? Look at the way they treat each other. So you know what? We'll take our time in this takeover. Right, maybe that's what's been going on all these decades. So then in the late 50s, early 60s, the alien abduction phenomenon starts picking up some steam, right? And then by the 70s and 80s, it's big time, right? Oh, there's a lot of people. There's all these people who are having these experiences where they're getting abducted, and it seems to be for some kind of a hybridization program. And now, according to David Jacobs, there's these beings living among us, right? And these hybrid, these part alien, part human, that are among us. And at some point, the aliens, which are seemingly are controlled at the top by these praying mantis type beings, at some point they're going to take over completely, right? And with the aliens with those praying mantises in charge are going to take over the planet completely, right? And the facilitators, like on the ground, the boots on the ground, will be the hybrids that are among us already, and probably some of the abductees who have no idea that they're pre-programmed like computers to, you hear this stuff in a lot of the alien abduction literature, that some of these people are told that at some point they're going to be acting as crowd control. They're being trained to be to control crowds. Now again, we don't know if all of this is all. We're not even sure if all of this is true. We just don't know. It's all speculation. But when you consider what the situation has been over the last 75 years, right? This could be the case. And for all this time, and they're not all the alien beings that are planning on living here. Maybe they're not even here yet. Maybe it takes a long time to travel, who knows how many millions of years light years through space to get here. So maybe the ones that are here, right, the most prevalent ones, that seems to be the gray aliens, which seem to be controlled by the gray aliens and reptilians. Some reptilians, which seem to be controlled by the praying mantis ones, they seem to be the prevalent ones here. They seem to be the ones that are behind the abduction phenomenon, right? So, and it would make sense that they would also be behind, if they're insects, right? And even reptilians. Reptilians, so some of them are carnivorous too. Maybe that's why that explains the cattle mutilations. Right, so it's all working toward this goal of basically taking over the planet, and they're waiting for their comrades. That they found this place years ago, and they're still waiting for the rest of their kind to show up here. And at that point, maybe that's when the change will come, as Dr. David M. Jacobs suggests, that at some point in the future, based on his analysis of alien abductions and things that abductees tell him during hypnotic regression sessions, that there's gonna be a takeover. Then that's when the change is. That's called the change. It's been referred to sometimes as a big change is coming, and that's what we're working toward. That we don't even know it. And maybe that's that could be a reason. Again, this the United States government and other governments of the world have been secretly studying this, and maybe are aware of something to this effect, and are trying to come up with ways secretly, privately, to prevent the change from happening when it does happen. And they feel that that's why they can't tell anybody, because if they tell anybody, the world will panic and they'll realize, oh my God. Right? Oh my! A lot of people would freak out, thinking, "Oh my God, there's aliens here, and at some point they're going to take over the world." But it's unknown exactly how they're going to do that. Now, of course, there's a lot of people out there who are going to completely. I mean, this is all pure speculation and a theory. It doesn't make me right. I'm not saying this is right. I'm just throwing it out there. There are a lot of people out there who think aliens are friendly and that they're here to help people. But then a lot of people say no. It's not. They're not. The bottom line is I have no idea. Right? I don't know. I don't see how anybody could actually know. There's a lot of people that say that. Well, every time I've experienced people who are contactees of extraterrestrials, they brought on board, or they're allowed they're shown how to fly a flying saucer. Things, you hear stories like that. Again, I don't know what's going on though. I don't know if they're here for good or evil, or maybe both, or maybe it's indifferent. I have no idea. Again, this is all just a theory. But maybe that's what's going on. They're hiding out in the oceans right now. There's some kind of a plot unraveling all these decades. We're just, most of the world is not aware of it. People within governments, in certain factions of governments that are privy to this knowledge that's been obtained from recovered craft and dead alien beings. They've come to conclusions like this, and they're probably not even completely sure. But then again, then there's other people that say there's aliens actually working with the government, and there's so many different theories we just don't know. This is just one of them, right, that I'm throwing out there. We have no idea really what's going on behind the scenes because our governments continue to keep it a secret from all of us, and all we're left with just wondering about it. We're just all of us are pretty much in the dark. All I could tell you is this: I know that it's real because I saw one of these beings. I encountered one of these beings, so I know that there's something here that's not human, that's more intelligent than humans, that has access to technology that surpasses anything we have. Because I saw one of these things, and I saw one of the craft up close. There was no way that this thing that I saw, which was within 20 feet of me, was made by mankind. There's just no way, right? And all these people that have encounters, right? Not all of them could be. Of course, there's probably some hoaxers and liars out there, but no, a great percentage of them are telling you the truth, right? A great percentage of them are telling you the truth. We're living in this phony reality where it's unknown whether there's life out there yet. The scientific community right now is, for the most part, the scientific community will tell you there's no proof whatsoever that there's extraterrestrials that are on this planet, that they're present here. That's the official scientific community stance at this point. It has not changed, even though, and it should have been changed a long time ago, right? There are some scientists who definitely have been brought in on this, right, secretly, right, that are looking at this, studying if there has to be. So, but we're living in this Alice in Wonderland fantasy. Most people are, where this is the world, the way that's painted by the mainstream media and the scientific community for the most part, and the Pentagon is the way the world is, and there's nothing strange about it. When in actuality, there's a whole bunch strange about this place, right? A lot strange about it. A lot of things going on around us, right? That other people know about, but they're not shared for whatever reason. And I guess some people will say, well, maybe that's the reason for the cover-up, because what you just said, if that theory, what you just presented, is correct, well, then why in God's name would why would the government ever want to spill the beans on that? There'd be too many people panic. Well, so what? I still think that the truth needs to come out. I think everybody needs to know about this. I think the truth is better than this pretend land of make-believe that the government has constructed, this phony reality. The truth is always better. I hope that's not the case. I hope that this isn't some colonization plan. My heavens, I mean, that would be the worst thing. I mean, that sounds horrible. I mean, what would they do with everybody then? I mean, when the change comes, what does that mean for everyone else? I mean, because you have to remember too, the power that these beings could have over people, it's amazing. I mean, they could make you forget. They could make you do things that you don't even understand why you're doing. You hear so many different stories. People driving a car down a lonely highway at night, and then suddenly, for some reason, driving on some back road that they just weren't even thinking about doing, and they don't even know why they're doing it. Next thing you know, they're getting abducted by an alien and brought on some ship, and they lose time and they don't know what happened. And then maybe a couple years later, they'll finally keep wondering about it, and then they'll finally go to a psychiatrist, and they'll get hypnotized, and it will all come back to them. And they'll realize, my God, I was completely under alien control, and there was nothing I could do about it. So if there's a change that does come, right, I mean, you have to wonder, what kind of power do these beings have? Would they be able to basically control everyone on the planet at the same time? Is that possible? Do they have the technology to do that? Or maybe that's what they're working toward. Maybe they don't yet. Maybe it's only limited at this point. And when the rest of their comrades get here for this to finally take control of the planet, right? To finally completely migrate here, and it's time to get rid of us. Maybe they'll be ready then, right? Maybe that to take control of us, and that maybe have us all walk off a short pier, off a cliff, off a short pier into the ocean somewhere, or maybe, who knows? Maybe fly us out. Maybe that's the whole plan, right? They're going to get rid of us that way. They're going to have us all mindlessly walk onto a mothership, and then that mothership's going to hover out over in the middle of the ocean, and just the floor will drop, and we'll all just drop into the ocean, and that will be it. That's how they'll get rid of us. We'll all become fish food, and then meanwhile the aliens will just take control of the planet. Anyway, it's all speculation. Doesn't make me right. But it's something to think about. It's not very pleasant, I guess. But hey, have a nice day anyway.